I can fix this." The words hung in the air on Michigan Avenue. A 9-year-old boy in a worn-out t-shirt, standing in front of a $600,000 Bugatti Chiron that had just died in downtown Chicago traffic. The German billionaire looked down at him. Then he laughed. A full, mocking laugh that made the entire crowd join in. "This child thinks he can repair my Bugatti," Klaus Steinberg said to his assistant, his accent thick with condescension. "What is next? Will he also perform my open-heart surgery?" But 3 minutes later, Klaus Steinberg wasn't laughing. He was staring. Because the impossible had just happened. And nothing, not his engineering degree from Munich, not his billion-dollar empire, not his entire understanding of how the world worked, had prepared him for what this child was about to teach him. If this story got you glued to your screen, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Because what you're about to watch would leave you second-guessing the way you see people with much harder means. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I'd really love to know. Now let's dive into it. Daniel Rivers was 9 years old the first time he fixed something that should have been impossible. Not the Bugatti. That came later. No, the first time was in his building. The ancient elevator that serviced all 12 floors had died for the 3rd time that month. The repair company wanted $2,000. Money that Mrs. Chen on the 5th floor didn't have. Money that old Mr. Patterson on the 8th floor couldn't afford to spare from his Social Security check. Daniel's grandmother, Rosa, worked the night shift at a diner and the morning shift at a laundromat. She couldn't afford to lose either job because the elevator was broken. So Daniel took a flashlight, a screwdriver he'd found in the alley, and his notebook where he drew mechanical diagrams he'd memorized from library books. He was in that elevator shaft for 4 hours. When it rumbled back to life, Mrs. Chen cried. Mr. Patterson gave Daniel $5 he couldn't afford to give. Rosa just held her grandson and whispered, "You're going to do something amazing one day, Mijo. I just know it." Daniel didn't feel amazing. He felt tired. And hungry. They were down to rice and beans for the next week because Rosa's paycheck was late again. This was Daniel's world. A world where brilliance meant nothing if you couldn't afford to develop it. Where talent was punished by circumstance. Where a mind that could understand complex mechanical systems at age 9 still went to bed hungry 3 nights a week. The schools he attended didn't have engineering programs. They barely had working computers. His teacher, Mrs. Franklin, was kind but overworked. Managing 40 students in a classroom meant for 25. But Daniel had something that poverty couldn't take away. He had eyes that saw how things worked. A brain that understood systems. And hands that refused to accept that broken meant useless. He fixed the radiator in apartment 4C using duct tape and a reconfigured valve. He rewired the building's electrical box when the super said they'd need a licensed electrician they couldn't afford. He even figured out how to boost the Wi-Fi signal using aluminum foil and precise positioning that nobody else understood. The tenants called him Little Engineer. Rosa called him her miracle. Daniel just called himself lucky he had something to do besides think about what they didn't have. August 15th. Wednesday. 2:47 p.m. Daniel remembered the exact time because he'd been counting the minutes until Rosa got off work. They were going to the library together. It was their weekly tradition. The one thing that was just theirs. He was walking down Michigan Avenue when he heard it. The sound of an engine dying. Expensive. Powerful. A 16-cylinder masterpiece giving its last gasp in the middle of downtown traffic. A crowd was forming. Daniel pushed through, curiosity pulling him forward. And there it was. A Bugatti Chiron. Electric blue. Carbon fiber accents. The kind of hypercar Daniel had only seen in YouTube videos at the library when he should have been doing homework. But it wasn't moving. The hood was up. Steam was rising. And standing beside it, barking orders in German-accented English, face twisted with fury, was a man in a custom suit that screamed wealth and power. His name was Klaus Steinberg. German tech billionaire. Manufacturing empire. The kind of man who bought and sold companies before breakfast and never, ever heard the word no. He was yelling into his phone. "I do not care about your schedule. I have a meeting with the mayor in 40 minutes. Send someone now. Daniel stood there, notebook in hand, eyes tracking the steam pattern, the sound the engine made before it died, the specific angle of the hood. He saw it immediately. Loose coolant hose. Simple fix. 5 minutes, maybe less. I can fix this, Daniel said. The words came out quiet. Small. The voice of a 9-year-old boy in a worn-out t-shirt and shoes that were 2 sizes too big because Rosa bought them on sale hoping he'd grow into them. Klaus Steinberg turned. Looked down. His blue eyes went from the phone to this child. And then he laughed. Not a chuckle. A full, dismissive laugh that made several people in the crowd laugh too. This child thinks he can repair my Bugatti, Klaus said to his assistant. His German accent making each word sound sharper. What is next? Will he also perform my open-heart surgery? The assistant smirked. The crowd whispered. Someone pulled out their phone to record. Daniel felt his face burn. But he didn't move. I can fix it, he repeated, quieter this time. Klaus bent down, still smiling that cruel smile. Little boy, this car is worth more than you will earn in your entire life. Go back to your mother. It's just a coolant hose, Daniel said. The clamp is loose. That's why it's overheating. Klaus's smile faded slightly. He glanced at his assistant, then back at Daniel. You know this how? I can see it, Daniel said simply. The steam pattern. The sound before it died. It's not the engine. Just the hose. What would you do if someone laughed at your ability to help? Drop your answer in the comments below. And make sure you're still here. What happens next will blow your mind. Klaus Steinberg stared at this child. Really looked at him for the first time. The worn clothes. The oversized shoes. The notebook clutched in small hands. But also the certainty in those eyes. The absolute confidence that had no business being there. You are serious, Klaus said. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. The crowd had grown larger. Phones were everywhere now recording. Klaus hated being made a spectacle. But he hated being late for the mayor even more. His mechanic was 45 minutes away. Stuck in traffic on the Kennedy Expressway. Klaus made a decision he would never fully understand. Fine, he said, standing up straight. You have 5 minutes. If you damage anything at all, I will have police here immediately. Understood. Daniel nodded. Klaus gestured to his assistant. Hans, get the emergency toolkit from the trunk. Hans looked horrified. Herr Steinberg, you cannot be serious. The toolkit. Now. The crowd pressed closer. Daniel could feel their eyes on him. Some curious. Most skeptical. A few openly hostile, like they were offended this poor kid dared to touch a car worth more than their houses. Hans returned with a leather case. Opened it. Inside were tools that looked like they belonged in a surgical theater. Chrome. Pristine. Organized with German precision. Daniel's hands were shaking as he selected a screwdriver. Not from fear. From excitement. He'd never held tools this good before. Clock is running, boy, Klaus said, checking his watch. Daniel moved to the engine. Even with the hood up, he had to stand on his toes to see properly. The Bugatti's engine was a work of art. 16 cylinders. Quad turbocharged. 1,500 horsepower. It was nothing like the simple machines Daniel usually worked on. But engines were engines. Systems were systems. And broken was broken. He traced the coolant line with his eyes. Found the problem exactly where he knew it would be. The hose clamp had vibrated loose. Probably from the aggressive driving Klaus clearly enjoyed. The coolant had been slowly leaking, causing the overheat. There, Daniel said, pointing. See? The clamp. Klaus leaned in. Squinted. His expression changed. Skice, he muttered. Daniel didn't know German curse words, but he understood the tone. Surprise. Maybe embarrassment. My mechanic should have caught this during last service, Klaus said quietly. It probably just loosened recently, Daniel said, already working. Happens with high-performance engines. The vibration. You drive it hard, right? Klaus blinked. How would you know this? Physics, Daniel said, tightening the clamp with steady hands. Power plus vibration equals stress on connection points. It's basic mechanical principle. The crowd had gone silent. Even Hans was watching now, fascination replacing his earlier contempt. Daniel worked methodically, tightened the clamp, checked the coolant reservoir. It was low but not empty. You need to refill this, Daniel said. There's a gas station 2 blocks back. They'll have coolant. Mix it 50-50 with distilled water if you can't get pre-mixed. You know the mixture ratio? Klaus asked. I know lots of ratios, Daniel said simply. He stepped back, closed the toolkit, wiped his hands on his already dirty t-shirt. Try it now, he said. Klaus and Hans exchanged glances. Klaus moved to the driver's seat. The entire crowd seemed to hold its breath. He turned the key. The Bugatti roared to life. Not sputtering. Not struggling. The smooth, powerful symphony of 16 perfectly tuned cylinders. The crowd erupted. Cheers. Applause. Phones capturing everything. Daniel just stood there, allowing himself the smallest smile. Klaus got out of the car slowly. He walked over to Daniel. The expression on his face was complicated. Pride and embarrassment fighting for dominance. What is your name? Klaus asked. Daniel. Daniel Rivers. Daniel Rivers. Klaus repeated it like he was memorizing it. How old are you? 9. Almost 10. 9. Klaus shook his head. And where did you learn to do this? Library books. YouTube when I can get Wi-Fi. And practice. Lots of practice. Klaus looked at this child, really looked at him, for the second time. And this time he saw something different. Not a poor kid from the wrong part of town. A mind. A gift. Raw potential wrapped in poverty. Hans, Klaus said, not taking his eyes off Daniel. Cancel my meeting with the mayor. Herr Steinberg. Cancel it. This is more important. He turned fully to Daniel. You said you taught yourself all this? Yes, sir. And my abuela, my grandmother, she helps when she can. But she works a lot. What does she do? Diner at night. Laundromat in the morning. Klaus was quiet for a long moment. Long enough that Daniel started to feel uncomfortable. I want to make you an offer, Klaus finally said. I don't want money for fixing your car, Daniel said quickly. That's not why I helped. I know. That is precisely why I am making this offer. Klaus crouched down to Daniel's eye level. What if I told you I could give you opportunities to learn? Real education. Real resources. Not charity. Investment. Daniel's heart hammered. What kind of investment? The kind that changes lives, Klaus said. But first, I need to meet this grandmother of yours. Where do you live? Daniel hesitated. He thought about their tiny apartment. About Rosa's pride. About how she'd react to a German billionaire showing up at their door. But he also thought about the library books he'd read cover to cover. About the engineering problems he solved in his notebook that nobody would ever see. About the potential trapped inside him with nowhere to go. 32 blocks north, Daniel said quietly. Above the bodega on Ashland. Klaus stood. Hans, call Maria. Tell her the mayor meeting is rescheduled. We have a more important appointment. He looked down at Daniel one more time. You embarrassed me today, Daniel Rivers. You made me look foolish in front of all these people with their cameras. Daniel's stomach dropped. But you also reminded me of something I had forgotten. Klaus's expression softened. That genius does not care about your bank account. Shall we go meet your grandmother? The bodega bell chimed as Daniel pushed through the door, Klaus Steinberg and Hans following behind him. Mr. Gomez looked up from behind the counter. His eyes went wide. Not at Klaus. He didn't recognize him. But at the suit. The expensive watch. The kind of man who didn't belong in this neighborhood. Danny, Mr. Gomez said carefully. Everything okay? Yes, sir. Just. Is my abuela upstairs yet? Mr. Gomez checked the clock. Should be. Her shift ended 20 minutes ago. Daniel led them to the back, through the narrow door that opened to an even narrower staircase. The wallpaper was peeling. The steps creaked. Hans looked like he wanted to turn around, but Klaus followed without hesitation. They climbed 3 flights. The building smelled like cooking grease and old wood and the lives of people working themselves to death just to survive. Daniel's apartment was at the end of the hall. Door painted green, chipped at the corners. He could hear the TV through the door. Rosa watching her telenovela before her laundromat shift started. He knocked. Abuela. It's me. The door opened. Rosa stood there, still in her diner uniform, hair pulled back, exhaustion etched in every line of her face. Then she saw Klaus and Hans. Daniel. Her voice went sharp with worry. What happened? What did you do? Nothing bad, abuela. I promise. This is Mr. Steinberg. I helped him today. With his car. Rosa's eyes narrowed. She'd lived long enough to know that rich men showing up at your door rarely meant anything good. Mrs. Rivers, Klaus said, extending his hand. May we speak? I promise your grandson is not in trouble. Quite the opposite. Rosa looked at Klaus's hand like it might bite her. But her grandmother had taught her manners, even when life tried to beat them out of her. She shook it. It's Ms. Rivers. And you can call me Rosa. Rosa. Klaus nodded. May we come in? She hesitated. Daniel could see her thinking about the worn furniture, the peeling linoleum, the smallness of everything they owned. But pride lost to curiosity. Come in, she said. But I have to leave for work in 30 minutes. The apartment was exactly what Klaus expected and somehow worse. One bedroom that Rosa had given to Daniel. She slept on the couch. The kitchen was barely bigger than a closet. But it was clean. Spotless, actually. Rosa's pride wouldn't allow anything less. They sat at the small table. 4 chairs, mismatched. Klaus took up more space than seemed possible. Your grandson, Klaus began, fixed my car today. A $600,000 Bugatti that my own mechanics could not diagnose. Rosa looked at Daniel. You did what? It was just a coolant hose, abuela. Just a coolant hose, Klaus repeated, a hint of amusement in his voice. In a W16 quad-turbo engine that most certified mechanics would be afraid to touch. Rosa's expression was complicated. Pride and worry fighting for control. Daniel fixes things, she said carefully. He's always been good with his hands. But Mr. Steinberg. Klaus. Please. Klaus. Rosa's accent made it sound softer. Why are you here? We don't have money if you're looking for payment. I am not here for money. Klaus leaned forward. I am here because your grandson has a gift. An extraordinary gift. And I believe it would be criminal to let poverty waste it. The words hung heavy in the small apartment. What are you offering? Rosa asked, voice cautious. Education. Real education. Private tutors. Access to laboratories, workshops, libraries. Everything he needs to develop his abilities. And what do you want in return? Klaus smiled. It was the first genuine smile Daniel had seen from him. You are smart, woman. Good. I want nothing from Daniel except to watch what he becomes. This is not charity, Rosa. This is investment in human potential. My companies will benefit from supporting brilliant minds. But more than that. He paused. I have 3 degrees. 1 from Munich Technical University. Engineering. I thought I understood how machines worked. Today, a 9-year-old boy taught me I had become arrogant. Blind. I had forgotten what real intelligence looks like. Rosa studied him. Men like you don't help people like us without strings. You are right to be suspicious, Klaus said. So I will be transparent. I want to prove something. To myself and to the world. That genius is not born in boardrooms and private schools. That the next Einstein, the next Tesla, might be living above a bodega in Chicago, and that all they need is opportunity. You want to use my grandson to make yourself feel good? No. Klaus's voice went hard. I want to give your grandson what the world has denied him. And yes, I hope to learn from the experience. Is that so terrible? Daniel watched his grandmother's face, saw the war happening behind her eyes. Abuela, he said quietly, I want this. Mijo, you don't understand. I understand that I'm good at things I've never been taught. I understand that Mrs. Franklin says I'm smart but the school can't give me anything more. I understand that you work 2 jobs and I still can't have the books I need. His voice cracked. I want to learn. Really learn. Please. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. She didn't let them fall. If I say yes, she said to Klaus, what exactly does this look like? Klaus reached into his jacket, pulled out a business card and a pen, started writing on the back. First, assessment. I want to know exactly what Daniel knows and what he can learn. Then tutors. He will stay in his regular school. I believe staying connected to your community is important. But after school, he works with specialists. Mathematics, engineering, physics, whatever his mind hungers for. And the cost? Nothing. I will set up a trust fund. Education guaranteed through university. And Klaus kept writing. A stipend. 5,000 monthly. For household expenses. Rosa stood up so fast her chair scraped. Absolutely not. Rosa. We are not a charity case. No, Klaus said firmly. You are not. But your work schedule makes it impossible for you to support Daniel's education properly. This is not charity. This is recognizing that Daniel's potential is being crushed by economics that are not your fault. We manage fine. You work 16-hour days, Klaus said quietly. Daniel goes to bed hungry sometimes. You both deserve better. The silence was crushing. How do you know that? Rosa whispered. Daniel looked at the floor. He'd never told his grandmother he'd mentioned that to Klaus. Klaus softened his voice. Because I grew up poor too, Rosa. In Stuttgart. After the war, my father's factory was destroyed. I know what it is to have brilliance and no resources. Someone gave me a chance. A scholarship. It changed everything. Let me be that person for Daniel. Rosa sat back down slowly. Looked at her grandson. At this strange German man. At the business card with numbers that seemed impossible. One condition, she said. Name it. Daniel stays Daniel. He doesn't become some performing monkey for your business friends. He gets to be a kid. He gets to play. He gets to fail without the world watching. Agreed. Klaus extended his hand again. Agreed. This time, Rosa shook it firmly. Daniel felt something break open in his chest. Something that felt like hope and terror mixed together. When do we start? He asked. Klaus checked his watch. How about tomorrow? 4 p.m. My office. We'll do the assessment, meet the tutors, discuss the plan. He stood. But tonight you should celebrate. Hans, give me your wallet. Hans looked horrified. Herr Steinberg. Your wallet. Now. Hans reluctantly handed it over. Klaus pulled out $500 bills. Set them on the table. Dinner tonight. Good dinner. Not rice and beans. Celebrate. Rosa stared at the money. This is too much. It is enough for tonight, Klaus said. Tomorrow we change everything. If you were in a situation like this and got a life-changing offer, what would you do? Drop your answer in the comments. Because what happens next will test everything Daniel and Rosa believe about trust, opportunity, and the price of dreams. Daniel stood in front of a whiteboard covered in calculus equations that would make most college students cry. He was 10 years old now, and he was solving them faster than his tutor could write them. Remarkable, Dr. Saracen whispered to Klaus, who was watching from the back of the converted warehouse space he'd purchased. His spatial reasoning is off the charts. And his memory. Klaus, I've never seen anything like this. The warehouse had been transformed. What was once storage for Klaus's manufacturing equipment was now something else entirely. Workstations with 3D printers, a robotics lab, chemistry equipment, computer stations running engineering software that cost more than most cars. And it wasn't just for Daniel anymore. Spread throughout the space were 15 other kids, ages 8 to 16, all from neighborhoods like Daniel's, all brilliant in ways the world had tried to ignore. The Rivers Foundation. Klaus had named it after Daniel's grandmother. Rosa had cried when she found out. Daniel, Dr. Chen said, why don't you take a break? You've been at this for 3 hours. Daniel looked up, blinked like he was coming out of a trance. But I'm not done with the integration problems. They'll still be here tomorrow. But, go, Klaus said from the back, his accent making it sound like a command and a suggestion at once. See what Marcus is building. I think you will find it interesting. Daniel's face lit up. Marcus Thompson, 13 years old. A genius with mechanical engineering who'd been fixing cars in his uncle's garage since he was 6. He and Daniel had become close over the past months. Daniel found Marcus in the fabrication area, covered in grease, working on what looked like a small engine. Is that what I think it is? Daniel asked. Marcus grinned. Electric motor. My own design. Trying to improve efficiency by 17%. Can I help? Was hoping you'd ask. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. This was Daniel's favorite part. Not the tutoring sessions or the advanced coursework. This. Creating. Building. Making things that didn't exist before. Danny, Marcus said after a while. Can I ask you something? Yeah. You ever feel guilty? Daniel looked up. About what? This. All of this. Marcus gestured around the warehouse. We got lucky. Met the right rich guy. But what about all the other kids like us? The ones who didn't have their car break down at the right moment? The question hit Daniel in the chest. Because he'd been thinking about it too. Late at night, when he couldn't sleep. When the weight of opportunity felt like pressure instead of gift. All the time, Daniel admitted. So what do we do about it? Before Daniel could answer, Klaus's voice echoed through the warehouse. Everyone. Meeting area. No. We have a problem. The tone made Daniel's stomach drop. They gathered around the central table. All 15 kids. The tutors. Klaus and his assistant Hans. Rosa, who'd come straight from her shift at the laundromat. She'd quit the diner job when Klaus insisted, though she still worked mornings because sitting still made her anxious. Klaus had his tablet open. His face was grim. There is an article, he began. In the Chicago Tribune. Published this morning. He turned the tablet around. The headline made Daniel's blood run cold. Billionaire's pet project. Exploitation or education? Critics question Klaus Steinberg's treatment of gifted children. Below it was a photo. Daniel and Marcus working in the lab. Taken through the window without their knowledge. They're saying you're using us, Marcus said, reading over Daniel's shoulder. That we're being pushed too hard. That this is child exploitation dressed up as philanthropy. Who wrote this? Rosa demanded. Investigative journalist. Named Patricia Wolf. Klaus scrolled down. She interviewed former employees. Child psychologists. Education experts. They are saying that accelerated education like this is harmful. That children need normal childhoods. That I am creating pressure that will damage you psychologically. That's ridiculous, Daniel said. We love it here. Do you? Klaus asked quietly. The question stopped everyone. What do you mean? Daniel asked. I mean. Klaus set down the tablet. I need you all to be honest. With me and with yourselves. Are you here because you want to be? Or because you feel obligated? Because you think you owe me something? Silence. Because if this is pressure, Klaus continued, if this is causing harm, then the critics are right. And we should stop. No. The word burst out of Daniel. Mr. Steinberg, this is the first time in my life I haven't felt like my brain was suffocating. The first time I get to actually use what I can do. But the article says. The article is written by someone who's never been us, Marcus interrupted. Never been poor and smart with nowhere to go. Never felt like their brain was a curse because it didn't fit in the boxes society made. A girl named Sophie spoke up. 12 years old. Programming genius. My old school wanted to hold me back because I asked too many questions. Said I was disruptive. Here, questions are celebrated. But what about play? Klaus pressed. What about being children? This is play for us, Daniel said. Don't you get it? Building things, solving problems, learning. This is what makes us happy. The article thinks childhood has to look one specific way. But what if our version of childhood includes calculus and robotics? Rosa had been quiet. Now she stood. I need to say something, she announced. And you're all going to listen. Everyone turned to her. When Klaus first came to our apartment, I was terrified. I thought he would take Daniel away from me. Turn him into something he wasn't. Use him. She looked at Klaus. And I watched. Every day. Waiting for the trap to spring. Rosa. Let me finish. Her voice was firm. But what I saw was my grandson coming home excited instead of frustrated. Challenged instead of bored. Happy instead of quietly desperate. And I saw other children getting the same chance. So when people ask me if this is exploitation, I tell them they can go to hell. Some of the kids gasped. Rosa never cursed. But, Rosa continued, we do have a problem. Not the one the article claims. The real problem is that Marcus is right. What about all the other children? The ones who didn't meet Klaus. The system that fails them. Klaus nodded slowly. I have been thinking about this. About scaling what we do here. But it is complicated. Everything worth doing is complicated, Daniel said. True. But there is also this article. Patricia Wolf is respected. Her words matter. If she has convinced people we are harming you, it becomes harder to expand. Harder to help others. Then we prove her wrong, Daniel said. How? Daniel thought about it. About the cameras. The article. The way stories could be twisted. We tell our own story, he said. Not through her lens. Through ours. We show people what this really is. We let them see us. Really see us. Klaus raised an eyebrow. You want media attention? I want the truth, Daniel said. Because if we don't tell it, people like Patricia Wolf will tell their version. And their version will stop other kids from getting what we have. The warehouse went quiet. That is risky, Klaus said. Very risky. Opening yourselves to public scrutiny. Being poor and smart was risky, Marcus said. This is just a different kind of risk. Klaus looked at Rosa. What do you think? Rosa studied her grandson. Saw the determination in his face. The boy who'd fixed a Bugatti on Michigan Avenue was now trying to fix something bigger. I think, Rosa said slowly, that my grandson is braver than I ever gave him credit for. She turned to Klaus. But if we do this, we do it right. No exploitation. No using these children for publicity. We show the truth, the good and the difficult. Agreed. Agreed, Klaus said. He looked around at all 15 faces. Young. Brilliant. Determined. All right then. We fight back. But not with anger. With truth. Daniel felt something shift in the room. A decision made. A line crossed. They had no idea what was coming. Patricia Wolf didn't expect the email. Subject, you're right, but also wrong. Let me show you. It was from Daniel Rivers himself. Ms. Wolf, you wrote that we're being exploited. That we're under too much pressure. That we're missing our childhoods. I'm inviting you to spend a week with us. See what we actually do. Talk to us without cameras. without your assumptions. If after that week you still think we're being harmed, I'll say so publicly. But you have to actually look. Actually listen. Deal. Daniel Rivers, age 10. Patricia stared at her screen. In 20 years of journalism, she'd never received a challenge from a 10-year-old. She accepted. Patricia arrived at the warehouse at 8 a.m., notebook ready, skepticism armor firmly in place. What she found wasn't what she expected. Daniel wasn't being drilled by stern tutors. He was teaching. Actually teaching. A group of younger kids gathered around him as he explained gear ratios using Lego models. See, if you want more torque, you need a larger gear here, Daniel said, adjusting the pieces. But you lose speed. It's always a trade-off. What's more important for your robot? Power or velocity? A 8-year-old girl named Maya raised her hand. What if we want both? Great question. Then you need. Daniel paused, thinking. You need multiple gear stages. Anyone know how a transmission works? Blank faces. Okay, come on. Let's build one. Patricia watched for 3 hours. Daniel never looked bored. Never looked pressured. He looked alive. He does this every Tuesday and Thursday, Dr. Chen told Patricia. We don't require it. He insists on it. Says teaching helps him understand things better. And the pressure? Patricia asked. The advanced coursework. Come see for yourself. Patricia followed Daniel to his afternoon session. Advanced calculus. Material most students didn't see until college. She waited for the stress. The tears. The signs of a child pushed beyond their limits. Instead, Daniel lit up. Oh, integration by parts, he said when Dr. Chen wrote the problem. This is like the product rule backwards, right? Can we try a really hard one? Dr. Chen smiled. How hard? I don't know. Surprise me. She wrote an equation that made Patricia's head hurt just looking at it. Daniel stared at it. Grabbed a marker. Started working. He made mistakes. Crossed things out. Tried different approaches. And he was grinning the entire time. This is fun, he muttered to himself. Okay, what if I substitute here? No, wait. Oh, that's clever. 20 minutes later, he had the answer. Did I get it? He asked, bouncing slightly. You did. But more importantly, did you enjoy it? Are you kidding? That was awesome. Can we do another? Patricia wrote in her notebook. This is not pressure. This is passion. There's a difference. On day 3, Patricia sat down with Rosa at the small apartment that was now just Rosa's. Daniel had insisted she keep it as a reminder of where they came from, even though Klaus had offered to move them. You were suspicious of Klaus at first, Patricia said. Of course I was. Rich man shows up promising dreams? That's usually how nightmares start. And now? Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Now I watch my grandson become who he was always meant to be. And I watch 14 other children do the same. You want to know about pressure, Ms. Wolf? Yes. Pressure was watching Daniel fix broken appliances in our building because we couldn't afford repairs. Pressure was seeing brilliance in his eyes and knowing I couldn't give him anything to develop it. Pressure was working 2 jobs and still going to bed wondering if I was failing him. Rosa's voice cracked. Klaus didn't create pressure. He released it. Patricia's notebook filled with words she hadn't expected to write. On day 5, Patricia saw what she'd been looking for. Marcus Thompson, in the bathroom, crying. She almost didn't approach. But journalism meant asking hard questions. Marcus. You okay? He looked up, wiped his eyes quickly. Yeah. Fine. You're not fine. Marcus was quiet. Then, I failed. Failed what? My motor design. The efficiency improvement. I've been working on it for 3 months. Presented it today. The math was wrong. All of it. Wrong. Patricia felt vindication rising. Here it was. The pressure. The damage. Do you feel like you let Klaus down? She asked gently. Marcus looked confused. Klaus. No. He said failure is part of engineering. That Edison failed 10,000 times before the light bulb worked. Then why are you crying? Because I'm disappointed in myself. Because I wanted it to work. Because I care about this project. Marcus looked at her. Ms. Wolfe, I'm not crying because someone pushed me too hard. I'm crying because I pushed myself and it didn't work out. There's a difference. Patricia realized something then. She'd been looking for victims. And what she'd found were children who'd been given permission to care deeply about something difficult. That wasn't exploitation. That was the opposite. 2 months later, Patricia's documentary premiered. Not the hit piece she'd planned. Something else entirely. Extraordinary Minds. The real story of the Rivers Foundation. It showed everything. The joy. The struggles. The failures and triumphs. Daniel teaching younger kids. Marcus crying over his failed motor. Sophie debugging code at midnight because she wanted to, not because she had to. And it showed Rose's truth. That poverty was the real exploitation. That denying children the chance to be extraordinary was the real harm. The documentary went viral. Within a week, Klaus's office was flooded with inquiries. Parents with gifted children. Philanthropists wanting to fund similar programs. School districts asking for consultation. And standing in the middle of it all was Daniel Rivers, now 10 years old, holding a marker and looking at a whiteboard. He was sketching out a plan. A network. Not just one warehouse in Chicago. Multiple sites. Connected digitally. Sharing resources. Letting brilliant kids find each other across distance and circumstance. It's like the internet, Daniel explained to Klaus. But for kids like us. A network of potential. Klaus studied the diagram. This would require significant resources. Coordination across cities. Partnerships with universities. I know. It would take years to build. I know. You understand what you are proposing? This is not just education. This is a movement. Daniel looked at Marcus, at Sophie, at Maya and all the others. Kids who 6 months ago were invisible. Who now were becoming impossible to ignore. You said genius doesn't care about bank accounts, Daniel said. You were right. But it also doesn't care about city limits. There are kids like us everywhere. In every poor neighborhood. Every struggling school. Every place where people decided potential only exists in rich zip codes. He turned back to the whiteboard. We proved they were wrong about us. Now let's prove they're wrong about everyone. Klaus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not pride in profit. Not satisfaction with success. Purpose. All right, he said quietly. Let's change the world. Daniel stood at the UN podium. 13 years old. Addressing world leaders. 3 years ago, a car broke down on Michigan Avenue, he began. A billionaire laughed at a poor kid. And everything changed. He looked at Klaus in the audience. At Rosa, crying quietly. At Marcus and Sophie and all the others who'd become his family. But this isn't a story about one lucky kid. It's about what happens when we stop deciding where genius is allowed to exist. When we start looking for it everywhere. The Rivers Foundation network now spanned 47 cities. 2,200 children. Dozens of breakthroughs in engineering, software, sustainable technology. All from kids the world had decided weren't worth investing in. The question isn't whether poor kids can be brilliant, Daniel said. The question is, how many Einsteins have we lost because they were born in the wrong zip code? How many cures, inventions, solutions are trapped in children we've decided aren't worth our time? He paused. I was one coolant hose away from being one of them. The assembly was silent. So here's what I'm asking. Look around your cities. Find the Daniels. The Marcuses. The Sophies. The kids fixing elevators and building robots out of trash and teaching themselves calculus from library books. They're there. Waiting. Wondering if anyone sees them. See them. That night, back in Chicago, Daniel found Klaus on the roof of the warehouse, looking at the city lights. You changed my life, Daniel said. No, Klaus replied. You changed mine. I just provided the tools. What happens next? Klaus smiled. You tell me. This is your foundation now. Your vision. Daniel looked out at Chicago. Somewhere out there in a struggling neighborhood was another kid like him, brilliant and overlooked, waiting for their moment. We keep going, Daniel said, until every kid gets a chance, until poverty stops being an excuse to waste potential. That is a very large goal. Yeah. Daniel grinned. But 3 years ago, you laughed when I said I could fix your car. How'd that turn out? Klaus laughed. Real and deep and genuine. Point taken, my friend. Point taken. If this story moved you, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Share this video. And here's the real challenge. Look around your community. Find a kid who's brilliant but overlooked. Be their Klaus. Be their chance. Because genius is everywhere. We just have to decide to see it. Drop in the comments. What's one talent you had as a kid that nobody noticed? Let's honor all the potential that almost got lost. And remember, every Einstein started as someone people underestimated.